Alright, so first I'm going to start off with like a quick rundown on what hydraulic fracturing is, also known as fracking. It is a process of vertical drilling where you dig like thousands of feet underground until you reach a shale rock formation, which you can then extract natural gas from. But first, when you reach the shale rock, you start drilling horizontally. And what this does is it increases the surface area of the well to be fractured. So the next step in the process is to inject water at extremely high pressures and force little microfractures to occur in the shale rock. And then through these fractures, gas can flow down into the well and back up to the top of the earth. So there's a bunch of these shale reserves located in the United States. There's one in Pennsylvania called Marcellus Shale. There's one in Texas called the Eagle Ford Shale. There's also one in North Dakota called the Bakken Shale. So my major claim is that hydraulic fracturing has the potential to provide immense benefits to the United States. I believe this is true because fracking provides a safe alternative energy for us to use. It leads to economic benefits on the macro and the micro levels, and it holds the key to eventual energy independence. So, in what ways does fracking provide a safe and effective alternative energy for us to use? First, let me tell you about coal. Coal has always been a main component in our energy production, and in the past it was used to heat homes, power locomotives, and at power plants. Okay. So coal must be burned in order for its energy to be converted into energy we can use. So when you burn anything in combustion, you add oxygen to it, you create CO2 and water. And this CO2 is what is causing a lot of our world's problems today. It's what we believe causes the greenhouse gas effect, and it is what we believe is leading towards global warming. So due to this impact, we're starting to restrict it a lot more, and coal is slowly starting to phase out. So what better alternative to coal than something that can burn with half as much CO2 produced for the same energy output? This would be natural gas, and this is what we get from the process of hydraulic fracturing. The only reason really natural gas has been popular in previous times is because of the fact that we didn't have enough of it, just because the previous process of fracking was less efficient and more harsh to the environment, but it's slowly getting better. So fracking is giving us access to a wealth of reserves that have been virtually untapped for hundreds of years, thousands of millions of years. And as I stated earlier, it provides half as much CO2 for the same amount of energy output. Obama actually spoke on the advances in the energy and production field, and he stated these advances have helped drive our carbon pollution to its lowest levels in nearly 20 years. Also, Chris Faulkner, founder, president, and CEO of Breitling Oil and Gas, estimates that there is enough natural gas underneath our feet to power the United States for 200 years. So just let that sink in and think about we can completely sustain ourselves for 200 years just based on this natural gas that's underneath us. And if we were to be able to use this, it would add to our energy, it would add to our power as a nation, our economic benefits, and everything else that we have coming towards us. So some of the economic benefits on a macro and micro level, quickly. From 2009 to 2014, oil production in the United States has risen by 3.7 million barrels per day. So this oil that we used to be importing, we're now producing ourselves, and it is leading to a more sustainable environment for ourselves, and it's increasing our ability to sustain ourselves. If we continue in this direction we are heading, we will no longer need to spend money on imported oil or on the ability to secure this oil. So get this, the United States spends $200 billion on protecting our assets in the Middle East in order to sustain this oil. If just a fraction of this money went to kind of advancing the technologies of fracking, and instead of going over there for the war and paying soldiers and all that, we can make some serious advancements in this technology and benefit ourselves. On the micro level, really quickly, household spending has decreased by an average of $1,700 per year due to the decreased spending from fracking. It has also led to an increase in jobs in the states that I mentioned before, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, and Texas. For example, in Pennsylvania, jobs increased from 6,500 to 30,000 from the years of 2002 to 2012. That is a 360% increase versus the state's total, versus during the same years, the state's total employment went from only rose 1.3%. So this will continue to happen. It's very assumable to say that this will continue to happen, and for the states, I'm just gonna move on from that point. So hydraulic fracturing holds the key to eventual energy independence. I'm going to drop some quick facts for you. Fracking provides 43% of the United States oil, and it produces 67% of the United States natural gas. This is just the beginning. It's going to continue to grow, and it will soon propel us to the top natural gas producer in the world. As producers rather than importers of energy, we are propelled above countries we have previously traded with for energy, and we will not be forced to fight wars over oil because we will have our own supply here at home. We can leave the people of the Middle East and Persian Gulf, we can leave them all alone and pursue a future where we are more peaceful with the nations and where we can be happy with what we have here at home, use what we have here. Thank you.
All right, Ian, I think you probably spend more time defining fracking than is necessary. I think it could be a lot briefer and you can get to your arguments sooner. You do identify your proposition pretty clearly, so I thought that was pretty solid. There's a good layout of what the contents are going to be, although phrasing on those points should be more declarative sentences. But I could see where you were headed, and I appreciated that you laid that out for us. I'm not exactly sure what's controversial about this subject. You haven't explained to me how anybody suggests that this isn't true or why there might be doubt about it. It sounds like you're simply describing something that is going on in the world as opposed to making any inferences, and that is a little bit problematic. There's an argument about whether or not fracking is safe. You never really get to that issue except in regard to the question of the carbon that gets released from burning it. And your argument is that we're getting half as much carbon as we would get from coal, but I'm not exactly sure that coal is the main competitor with the gas that we get from fracking. There may be other sources of energy, and I would assume, for instance, that people who advocate green technologies would suggest that those other sources are even less likely to produce carbon. So maybe that's where the controversy is, and there ought to be a little bit more development of those particular points. The second point on the economic benefits, you get to that particular point, and I think it was a little bit abrupt and awkward as you transitioned to the point. You had some good information there about the jobs in the different marketplaces. You had a couple of examples that you pointed to. I thought that that was pretty effective. The argument about how much money we spend in the Middle East seems to assume that all of it is spent primarily on protecting oil interests, and I have no doubt that some of that is true, but where that number came from, I'm not quite sure, and how it was arrived at, I definitely don't know. And I think that's a little bit problematic. The idea of being energy independent, I think, is a good idea. You've got some statistical information that suggests that that's true. One of the problems that I found regularly in your information is that you're not providing source citations for information. So when we get a statistic or a piece of factual data, I don't always know where it comes from. I don't doubt that it's true, but some of it does sound like it's you know the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So my question is, where does it come from, so that I can evaluate that. We did get one source that you did cite one specific source for that estimate, about 200 more years worth of energy, and I thought that I appreciated that. I just needed to have that kind of thing more often in the presentation. Your generalizations, like I said, I don't think you're going that far. You're mostly describing what's existing now. There's a little bit more inference about what's going to happen in the future. I appreciated that. I thought you had a pretty good summary at the end of the speech, and reminding us of what your position was as an exit was fine. All right, thank you.